We are back with the Fairfax podcast. It's been a little while, a little bit sporadic, but when we do come back each time, the guests seem to get more and more special and more extraordinary. Brooke McIntosh is our guest today, and extraordinary doesn't even really cover what she's been through, what she's achieved, and what she's going to do. She's a 28-year-old from Western Australia. And I think she is the definition of tough, particularly, well, no, mentally and physically. I'm not going to say anything more. I'd rather she told the story. Brooke McIntosh, welcome to the Fairfax.
Oh, I'm honestly so excited to be here and have this conversation with you today and to be explained as tough. I've been battling with this idea for the last few months of like what tough is actually and what resilience actually is. And that sums me up in a whole. So I really, really do appreciate that. But I feel like it's definitely not the old school tough.
Wow, we'll see about that. Brooke, let's do a little bit of background first. You're Perth, born and raised?
Born and raised Perth. Yeah. Country girl. Love it.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah,
a city slicker.
that's okay. That's all right. Well, Perth is the beautiful country town, really, isn't it?
It is. Western Australia is WA's best. As they say, West is best.
Brooke, we'll kick straight into it. Tell me what you know and you have experienced in regards to severe exercise and eating disorders.
Oh, straight there. I've gone from one end to the other end. So when I was 13 years old, I battled with eating disorders then. I would starve myself every single day. My mum would pretty much try force feed me a wee bit, but then I would run to the bathroom and throw it up because I thought in order to be beautiful, to be accepted into society, and to be wanted, that I had to be skinny. I had to be a size 6. And no matter what I looked like in the mirror, it was never thin enough for me. So then it was like excessive eating. It was excessive exercising, under eating. And that led to a whole lot of health complications over the years for a good, right up until I was about 23. That led to over exercising just to try get onto a stage weight and be classed as a fitness model. Um, yeah, and a whole lot of damage to my body. And then it was after I competed in fitness competitions, I dived deeper into the strength work. And I was like, oh, if I eat more and if I actually heal my relationship with food, if I actually heal my beliefs internally, then I get to lift more. And that's where it stemmed about. It was just a whole unraveling of what I thought I had to do and be in order to be accepted. And it was a whole unraveling of coming to my internal world, and doing a lot of inner work that has led me to be able to heal my relationship with food and my relationship with exercise. And instead of over exercising now or overeating or under eating, instead of all of that, I know that my body is here not to be sculpted. It is my vehicle for life. And if my vehicle for life is healthy, then I get to do extraordinary things. I
Mm.
get to do these extreme things. And it's here to be respected. It's not here to be bashed down, put down, or starved to try and look a certain way.
Mm.
So, yeah, it was a whole internal journey that I had to go on to heal my relationship with food and exercise. And now I do those things because I love and I respect my body and it feels good. It makes me feel alive every single day.
Mm. How long did that process take for you to move through that and then find a healthy, fitter, both mentally and physically you?
Oh, it took about 10 years. Yeah.
Wow.
I battled with eating disorders all the way from 13 all the way up until maybe 23.
Mm.
And it wasn't until I started um, moving into breath work that I was like, oh, actually, movement should be enjoyed, not
Mm.
disciplinary action for eating bad foods, as society likes to categorize
Mm.
it. So it took about 10 years for me to come to terms. And still, to be honest, it is a continuous process every single day now
Mm.
However, I'm so aware of it. And if there's a slight chance that my mind wants to kick back into that, because I believe it is still there. However, I'm so consciously aware of it now that I get to, that it doesn't have a hold on me as such. But if I find myself slipping back into that old patterning, I pull myself up on it straight away. And I have my process that I go through, breathwork being one of them, grounding being another, and affirmations in the mirror and reminding myself who I am, and the people that I speak to too. Yeah.
So, look, I've got to be honest, that in itself and getting through that is probably enough life journey for people. You've had a few others. Tell me about your work as a fly in, fly out worker, and then tell me how it led to these amazing runs that you've done and what they are in support of.
So fly in, fly out work has been a part of me since I was 12 years old. So when I was 12 years old, I wasn't fly in, fly out, but my mum decided to go fly in, fly out. So having both my parents very absent at 12 years old, that forced me to kind of step into this big responsibility that no child should really have when they're 12 years old. But I got a feel of what it is like to be a child inside the FIFO world. And growing up with a FIFO mother, fly in, fly out mother, she would always come home and she was like, oh my God, it's just like my holiday. It's just like my escape from my reality. And I was like, what? Really? Like, this place must be amazing. So I moved to the Pilbara, which is top of Western Australia, when I was 17 years old, when I graduated high school. I joined, I did all sorts of different things. Like I worked in the supplement mart, and then I was a McDonald's manager. And then I started working in the workshops as a trade assistant. And I absolutely loved it. I was like, oh, this is what it means to be that strong, independent woman in working in a male dominant environment, like amongst the tools, amongst all the boys. I was like, I've made it. This is great. But when I was in Karatha, I just had this huge awakening, and I was like lying on my bed, not lying on my bedroom floor one day, and I was like, there's got to be more to this. Like, what am I doing? And I was coming back down to Perth for a girlfriend's wedding. And in that split decision, 2 days later, I'd packed up everything, sold off my entire life, and made the decision to move back down to Perth. However, my whole life has adjusted to the higher rates of what you get when you're working inside the mining industry. So I was like, all right, my time to go FIFO. So I went FIFO, and I was working week on, week off at the time. And it was so challenging. I thought that I was getting into this holiday mode that my mum had talked up so much as I was a little girl. She would rave about it. And I was like, let's see what it's about. And it was extremely challenging because we would be away at work, working 12 to 14-hour days. I still loved my fitness. It's a part of me. So I wanted to work out every day. I wanted to go for a walk, go outdoors, get myself in nature. However, that become less and less as the workload and the long hours was so intense. So that kind of dripped off. But then on my weeks off, it was kind of like I was using it as an escape. And instead of exploring on who I want to be or following my passions, I would turn to the drugs and alcohol and do what any young 20-year-old wanted to do, was just to party, have fun with her friends. And it was like catch up, catch up, catch up.
And you've
And
got
that
the
went
money
on.
to do it, haven't you?
And I've got the money to do it. However, I've got the money to do it. And then every time I'd go back to site, because on my week off, I would blow all my money. I was like, I'm the friend who's got all the money. So I'll shout people drinks. I'll shout people a retreat. I'll shout people a staycay. And so I'd go back to site, and I've got no money in the bank. I've got barely any money in the bank. And I'm like, what am I doing now? Like, what's happening? So then I decided, all right, the thing to do is to work 3 weeks on and 4 weeks on, 1 week off, limit my social time at home so I don't have all of this social interaction to play catch up on. But then I just got worse and worse and worse. And on my weeks off, I started getting in the realm of personal development, and I started choosing better choices, and I started speaking at schools about confidence and what it means to have confidence and how you need to be your authentic, confident self. And I was on my R&R one day, and I was driving to a school to deliver a talk. And all of a sudden, It was, sorry, backtrack a little bit. It was the week that I was planning my exit strategy out of my life. Because when I was FIFO, depression and anxiety hit an all-time high because I found it super challenging to work in those environments, to be amongst a complete male-dominated environment when I hadn't found who I wanted to be. I hadn't found the confidence and the ability in my voice and who it is that Brooke McIntosh is. I experienced sexual assault and plenty of sexual harassment while I was on site. And this sent me in a turmoil, and a turmoil spiraled down and down. So I started isolating myself by either just going straight to the gym or going straight home. And when you work FIFO, you stay inside this campsite donga. And literally, it's people call it like a prison because you get told when to wake up, you get told when to go to work, you get told when to eat, when to sleep, and that's all you're doing for 3 to 4 weeks. On top of that, being a female, dealing with some sexual harassment and assault, that triggers a lot. So on my weeks off, I started stepping into the realm of what I was really passionate about, which was speaking, inspiring females, empowering them to be better and do better. On my way to deliver this school talk, it was the depths and the darkest I've ever been with depression. I was planning my exit strategy out of this world. And I was like, if I just do it this way, then it'll be an accident. If I just have a car crash, then it'll be an accident. And no joke, I was on the highway going 100 k's an hour. And I missed the turn and I tried to correct myself within like 50 meters of missing the turn. I tried to make it. I moved to the left, but I forgot to look back to the right and I smashed into a concrete bollard going 100 miles an hour. And then I had a truck come through and smash the tail end, spinning me all the way around. And for me, that was like a double hit, double whammy. And I was like, I just remember waking up and regaining consciousness in my car, jumping out of my car. I sustained no injuries other than severe whiplash. I still got taken away in the ambulance. Everyone in that car crash was A-OK, which I was so grateful for. I ran over to the people involved, asked them if they were okay. And then I got taken away in the ambulance. I remember just lying on my hospital bed that night. And I was like, what are you doing? Like, FIFO is not for you. The mining industry is not for you. You're not made to drive a truck for 12 hours a day. There's so much more to your life. And I asked myself the one question, I was like, what impact do you want to make? And it was the impact to empower and inspire others to speak up about their mental health. Because had I done something about my own mental health 10 years on earlier, I wouldn't have been in that position. But then I realized that this is, even now, this is my second chance at life. So if I get to be the light, if I get to be the inspirational hope for others who have not yet found their voice or found their courage to speak up, then that's me living in purpose. So that inspired the run from Western Australia, from top of Western Australia down to Perth. That inspired me to run 1,600 Ks to raise awareness for mental health.
So just on that, before we kick into that amazing effort, because I was watching your documentary today thinking, oh my God, FIFO might be well paying, but the environment for both females and males is, you're not going home, are you? Like you do go home, but you've got long periods away by yourself. And that some of the figures you quoted about suicide and poor mental health for FIFO workers, is it because of that environment? Like it's well paying, but you are very isolated and away from your family?
Yeah, it's very isolating. You are away from your family, and it's kind of like you're living a double life, which becomes so tiring at times. Like when you're on site, you're one person. When you come home, you've got to be the mum, you've got to be the dad, you've got to be the daughter, whatever it is, you've got to be the partner. But you're so exhausted from FIFO, from working on site those 12, 13-hour days, that when you come home, it's like rush, 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 but you never actually get time for you. And the conditions up there, some mine sites are okay, but a lot of the time the conditions aren't the best to go back and live in. And when you've worked for 12 hours, the time to exercise, which plays a massive role in anyone's mental health, is very limited. So it's like, all right, let's just go to the bar. Let's go have a yarn at the bar over some beers. I'm not like that. A lot of the guys up there, they're not like that, but they do that as well because it's like getting your social interactivity in. However, when I was on site, I would hold these conversations with the guys on a mutual ground, just one by one. And it was really interesting to see where the conversations went, because it's like, yeah, they're working. However, they're also dealing with family struggles. They're also trying to parent while they're away. They're also trying to be a good husband while they're away for 2, 3 weeks. And when they come home, they're exhausted. So then they can't give all their love to their
Mm.
wife that they want to as well. So it's a lot.
A lot to be said about if you do work hard going home to your own bed, isn't it? Your own possessions, your own couch, just do your own things as opposed to um, accommodation like that.
Mm. And the beds aren't the comfiest either. So sometimes you'll be like up all night tossing and turning.
So the trucks are not small on those roads. So you've survived that. I saw a couple of photos of your car. Um, how did the run come about? Tell us about the run and tell us the two main organizations that you work with. I think it's Blue Tree and is it Hello
Blue Tree
20?
20 Talk. Yeah.
20
So the Blue
Talk.
Tree Project and 20
Yeah.
Talk. Yeah.
Can you tell me about how the run came about?
Yeah. So again, I was lying on the hospital bed and I was like, what do I want to do? And it was like, what impact am I going to create? And am I here to create? Do I want to create? And this played on me for a good couple of months. And I had like 2 weeks off maybe, and then went straight back to site because again, my funds were drying up because I
Mm.
kept doing all that stuff. So I went back to site and I was laying awake in my dom at 2 o'clock in the morning. All of a sudden, I've just got this wide eye and I'm just lying there at 2 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, that's it. I'm going to run from Pilbara to Perth. And I have no idea how I'm going to do this. I am not a runner. I am a strength trainer and I love my weights. I'd never ran anywhere over 10Ks in my life before. But I'm going to do it. So I reached out to two people. I reached out to my brother and I reached out to a physio who physio become a really good friend of mine. His name's Nick, and he backed me from the very, very get go. My brother, he wanted to keep me safe, and he tried to dismiss it, downplay it, and like just no belief in it. However, because I messaged Nick, I don't know why, but that day I just got an urge to message Nick as well. I wouldn't normally, but I messaged him. I was like, hey, Nick, I want to do something grand. Can you help me? He called me first thing the next day and he's like, yeah, what is it? I told him. He's like, oh my God, you're batshit crazy, but let's do it. And he started getting me onto the run coach, like the proper strength training for runners that I needed to do. And like we started laying the plan that way. And yeah, then it just all come about and it all happened. And why Pilbara? Because the Pilbara is home to so many FIFOs, so many FIFO workers. And Perth is because that's where I'm living now and it's home to me as well.
Mm.
The Pilbara also holds a intense, immense, special place in my heart because my dad has lived there my whole life. So on school holidays and stuff, I would always go back and forward to Karratha, and that's exactly where we started the run. And then coming home, it was like coming back to Perth. It was literally kind of like a homecoming for me to like run back to Perth. And then I chose Blue Tree Project and the 20 Talk because I just believe they're doing amazing things here in Perth, and they want to expand their capacity and their charities to all across Australia as well. So yeah.
Let's add a bit of extremity. How far was the run? And I think it was 27 days. How many Ks did you cover in 27 days? And tell us a little bit about the temperatures and the weather conditions.
Wrapping back around to how we even started this conversation with eating disorders and my relationship to food. On day one of this run, the temperature scorched to 48 degrees. And I had to run 60 Ks. I started that day at 8 a.m. because I had a whole people wanting to come run with me. But I started at 8 a.m. on day one and it reached to 48 degrees that day. It was horrendous. And I literally had to do whatever it took to get me through. So I remember running straight into a service station, grabbing 2 cans of Coke because my body was so dehydrated and needing immense sugar straight away. And I just drank the Coke. I have not drinking Coke since that, like before that moment, I had not drinking Coke for like 10 years because I was like, Coke is scary. It's got all these sugars in it. I can't have
Yeah.
Coke. So day one, it just all went out the window. And I was just like, I literally just have to feed my body whatever it needs to get through the next 27 days. And it was 60 Ks a day for 27 days. The temperatures started at 48 degrees. And then as I come further and further down the coast and come closer and closer to Perth, I was battling with these severe weather storms. There was a severe weather warning that went out and said, like, people stay home. The roads are so bad. And I was running in it. It was the funniest thing, but it was the best thing ever.
Yeah, you're not convincing me, but anyway, um, mentally, so it's all good and well to say you're doing this, you've put it all together and you've promoted it. Tell me about your lowest moments. How, like, were there moments where you thought, oh, fuck this, I'm out?
There was plenty of moments that I thought, fuck this. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that. But there was plenty of moments where I was like, fuck, what am I even doing? And then within like 2 minutes, I kid you not, a truck would come by and toot me, or someone would come by and drop me lollies, or someone would come by and bring me cash donations. And it was like in those moments that I was like, fuck this. It was like the universe was dropping someone to remind me, keep going, keep going, keep going. And that's what kept getting me through. It was the comments coming through on Instagram. It was the community supporting behind me. People would leave, what are they called? Like posters on the side of the road for me to see as I ran past. And I was like, all right, this is what it is. This is what it is. And
One
every
step at
single
a
day,
time?
yeah, I call it just one more. And I was like, it's just one more. It's just one more K, just one more step, just one more breath. And every single day, that's what it was. Like when my watch clicked over every kilometer. So
Mm.
every time my watch clicked over every kilometer, I was like, just one more, just one more. And then at the end of the day, I was like, sweet, that day's done. I'll focus on tomorrow and I'll focus on the first kilometer. I'll focus on the next one and just focus on what's in front of me opposed to what's to go.
So day one, you kick off and you run a marathon and a half in 48 degrees.
Yeah.
Favorite food, favorite snack?
Or me 10 years ago would never say this, but my favorite food and favorite snack is Coke and salt and vinegar chips in
Yum.
white bread.
Ah, I think,
Yeah.
isn't that the problem with America? They eat that, but they don't do the exercise that you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is where I learned, I was like, oh my God, if I like, for you to go the elite distances, for you to go the extra distance, yes, you need to nourish your food with all the whole foods as well and
Mm,
all the good
mm.
foods. However, this is where like I believe there is no such food as good or bad. It just depends with what you're doing with your other time as well. It's
Yeah.
like if you want to sit at home and eat all the chips on the couch and do nothing,
Mm,
that's where you're going to have health complications.
mm, mm. Um, how did your feet go?
Oh, that would tear it up to a max. Teared up by the end. I had lost a few toenails, but I was like, blister pads, they were my best friend. And chafing. People don't realize, but when you run ultra distances, you chafe a lot and you chafe in places that don't normally get touched.
Mm.
So you're literally putting like, I put nappy rash cream everywhere and
Mm.
pseudo cream was my best friend.
Choice of sneaker.
I loved my Brooks. They're
Your
my number one
books.
choice for sneaker.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's kind of ironic, like Brooke wears Brooks. I'm like, but they're my favoriteest and comfiest. And you notice when you run those like those distances, that if you run on the inside of the line on the highway, it is way smoother for your feet because you don't feel the terrain and the rocks pinching through because
Oh,
the car tires have already done like worn out the tracks.
let's just add another risk. There's not a lot of soft edges, the parts that you want to run on. Those trucks are moving too, aren't they? I
Yeah.
mean, even if they don't hit you, there's a hell of a slipstream. I'm imagining there's road trains going past.
Yeah. And you get like when the road train goes past, if you're not paying attention, um, you can literally get sucked into its wind tail. And that's where you have to have a really strong core to be able to embrace and pull yourself back out. But I would say 70% of the times the trucks would actually move completely over if it was safe enough to do so for me. And they would let me just keep running and give us like a whole lane distance to keep running, which is really kind of them. Yeah. There was a few times where it was like close calls with the truck. But in saying that, the caravanners were way more scarier.
The grey nomads.
The grey nomads. I'm like, can you not see I'm running here? I know it's crazy, but give me a meter.
Yeah, the truck drivers probably don't have cataracts like they do they?
No.
Anything slithering along the ground that was a deterrent?
See any snakes now that you point it out? Didn't even come to my mind. I didn't see any. All
Good.
I seen was sheep
Sure.
and sheep and mountain goats. Yeah. Funny one for Perth.
So, so that should be enough, yeah? You raised over $70,000.
Yeah, we totaled like 74,900, so close to 75K. But
Yeah.
should be enough. Should be
Yeah,
enough
so
for
we
the
can
average
we can
day.
wrap this podcast up now, can't we? Because you don't run anymore. You're not doing anything else.
Oh, yesterday I ran 55K, so the training's still there because I last year when I finished the run, I was I crossed the finish line and I'm like I said to Rowan, who was my support crew for the whole run, I said to Rowan on the last day, he's like, "How are you feeling? It's the last day. You're excited? Are you excited for it to all be done? Like you're almost there." And I turned to him and I was like, "Oh, I just want to keep going. Like, why did I say that this is going to be the last day? Why did I say that this is the finish?" And I crossed the finish line, and a few days later, I was like, this ain't the finish. Like, I still got more in my tank. I still want to do more. And it wasn't want to do more out of spite of what I've done is not already enough. Like,
Mm.
that's a huge feat and a huge achievement. But I was like, I'm physically still so good. I'm mentally still so good. And I literally just know that I've got more in the tank. And that's when I was like to my team, I was like, guys, should we go just one more? And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, let's go just one more. Like, let's go do one more state. And then Nick, my physio, who I first reached out to, he's like, why don't we go just one more, a lap around Australia? And I was like, oh my God, let's do it.
Tell
So,
us about the distance. I think you're going to do it over 180 days. Is that right? And I'm not very good at maths. How many Ks are you going to have to cover each day?
yeah, that's correct. So, in March 2025, next year, 3 months away, it's come up so fast. I'm going to be running 80 Ks a day for 180 days. And that's 2 marathons a day for 6 months straight.
Probably shouldn't say this to someone who's had mental health issues, but that is mental.
It's absolute mental, but it's absolute mental. But for me, it's inevitable that I achieve it and that I do it. And I feel if I was to die tomorrow, pass away tomorrow, and I didn't do this, then I wouldn't be able to be like, yeah, I just feel there's more on the table and I like to leave no stone unturned. So I feel like if I was not the one to do it, I would be living a lie to myself. And that's why we're going to do it.
Talk to me who you've got on board sponsorship wise.
So Rowan, the guy who crewed all of last year, he's coming on board for a whole 6 months this time.
The
I'm like,
pancake
you're an
chef.
absolute legend. The pancake chef. He knows me inside of like he knows how to cope with my high days and my low days. He knows when I need space. He knows what to expect because when you're running for 80 Ks, like your emotions are all over the place. And that's one thing that I love about running is yeah, it's a physical feat, but it's also an emotional and mental challenging feat as well. And you get in when you're running distances, you get to this stage and it's like you become invincible, but then you get to another stage where you are so emotional and you are working through so many stories, you are working through so many old past traumas. And then on the other side of that, you're like, you just become, I don't know. I personally say you become more you the further that you go. So we've got Rowan on board for the whole run. And then we're starting to gain more sponsors on board now. So we've got Black Roll, we've got Found Space Saunas, AG1, LSKD, and a few more in the pipeline to make it happen.
How can we help? I'll put these up in the show notes, but also on the YouTube channel. Um, how can people help? How can people contribute to this amazing course for mental health?
Definitely when we're passing through your state, reach out and come run with us. It's one thing I'm doing differently this time is actually inviting the whole community to come run. Whether you run a K, whether you run the whole 80 Ks, I don't care. Come
Mm.
run or bike ride next to me. and share the message, but also to have just one more conversation. Yes, we're fundraising again, so the links will be in the show notes, hopefully. We're fundraising again. The target this time is $1.4 million. And the bigger target is for people to have just one more conversation with their friends and their family about their mental health. So we can break the stigma. I want to say once and for all, but I truly believe that if we inspire and empower and come together as a complete nation, then we can have a shift in society around mental health.
Brooke, where's the stigma? Where is it? Is it mainly still with males? Is it a particular part of the community? Is it
Mm,
still hard for people? Like if I say at a party I've got asthma, people go, okay. Whereas if I tell people at a party I've got post-traumatic stress disorder, or I've got anxiety or depression, is that where it still lays?
absolutely. And because mental health is, you can't physically see it, people dismiss it. And it's
Mm,
like, all right, if I had a broken leg, I'm going to go get that fixed from the doctors. If I
yeah.
had depression and I want to talk about it, it's like people just dismiss it and they're like, oh, no, you don't. Or they just push it down, or they freeze because they don't know how to openly talk about it. And it's like, if one person just starts openly talking about it, it just becomes like, it just starts breaking the stigma. And I believe, yeah, your mental health is as much as your physical health. Just how you break a bone in your body, sometimes a wiring in our brain is not completely all there, and we need some help, like, to talk about it. And I believe talking is the best type. Talking and taking action is the best type.
Preventing people from doing regrettable things.
Yeah. And that's one huge thing that I have found in my journey and giving a second chance at my life. It wasn't that I wanted to end my life, it was that I wanted the pain to end. I
Mm.
wanted to stop the pain. And yeah, now it has, because I seek the support, and I continuously seek the support that I do.
Tell us about your motivational and public speaking.
I love that. I love speaking to the masses, speaking to anyone about rewriting the narrative of their story, about having proper resilience, and this tied into the how we open this conversation, being seen as tough. To me, tough in the old era is like, yeah, do hard shit, get shit done. Don't talk about it. Just do it. Suck it up, princess. Go, go, go. I
Mm,
hate that.
mm,
That's not what tough is in my world. To
mm.
me, tough is having the courage to do hard stuff and to speak hard things and to use your voice. And that's, to me, what resilience is as well, is having the courage to ask for help, to speak up if we're not okay, to do the hard things, yeah, but to not push the hard things down. It's to allow them out and allow us to process our emotions that we need to process. Otherwise, it's just going to get stored. And I'm like, stop being tough, be resilient. And the new era tough, where we talk about our emotions, we go out and still do hard things, but it's not rah, rah, rah.
Mm. Um, it doesn't have to be on your run, but it can be if you like. Tell me, with all this stuff that you've done to inspire people and make society a happier place, is there a particular story that sticks with you, one that makes you emotional, or one that's really shown you that you've achieved so much in helping people?
Yeah. Um, it was definitely on my run. And it was this one day I was running down the highway, and again, it was a day where I was just like, this is crap, man. Like, the hills are just never ending. It's rolling hills. It's 35-degree heat. Like, what the hell? No one is out here. Like, can this just be over? It was one of them days.
Mm.
And I'm running, and then all of a sudden, I just see this sign, a glimpse out of my eye, and I'm like, what? Like, what? And I just ignored it for a little bit, and then I ran past it, and I was like, it was the most thoughtful gift ever. And it was the simplest act of random kindness that I've ever had in my life. And it was this lady, she made this sign and it said, just one more, impact to ignite. Sorry, 2 seconds, I'll grab it. I still have it. It was this one here.
Wow. Yes, that was in your documentary.
Yeah. And she put so much thought and effort into it. And
Yeah.
it's literally just a bit of cardboard. But then on the back, it says, Brooke, you are an absolute legend. I am in constant awe of your achievements each and every day. Thank you for raising awareness. I'm hopeful that this starts an important conversation. And there's a little bit more that goes on to it, but in that moment, I was like, Oh my God, it doesn't matter how big nor how small you are never too small to make an impact. And for this lady, KB, to go out of her way and to, what's it called? For her to wrap this onto a sign for me to
Mm,
see,
mm, mm.
she searched for me down the highway and couldn't find me because we must have just kept missing each other. But for her to do that, I was just like, this is me living in purpose. This is me having an impact. And even if it's just one person, that one person, it could have the chance to potentially save their life. For me, I was like, that's a well done job.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who who inspires you, Brooke?
Who inspires me? So many people inspire me. Um, I definitely say my younger self inspires me the most, though. Yeah. I often look back at videos of my 1 year old self, my 2 year old self, and I'm like, fuck, I love you. Like you had no fear there. Let's just keep doing that. Yeah.
Favorite book?
Oh, I'm not much of a reader, to
Audio
be
book,
honest.
documentary. What's
Oh,
something you've read or watched or
documentary.
listened to that it inspires you?
Oh, it's called Naiad on Netflix. It's called Naiad. She had this dream and she had this vision on her heart. When she was 30, she tried to go for it. And it was to swim from somewhere like Costa Rica to America. Like it was a massive swim.
Mm,
Um, in open waters with no support. She was going to do it all herself. A boat following her, but she wasn't
mm,
allowed to touch the boat.
mm,
Anyway, it ended up being 48 hours in the water. She tried to do it when she's 30. She didn't succeed. And then she slept on it. She left it and she come back. It reignited inside of her when she was 61 years old. And she was like, I'm going to go for this. I'm going to do it. And she tried to get up and go do it again. Didn't succeed because the swell was too much. And she was actually getting stung by these really poisonous jellyfish in the water. And she succeeded when she was 64 years old. She didn't let the dream die. She didn't give up because it was too hard. She didn't stop. And she didn't stop because she believed it was hers to have and to achieve. And she just kept going at it. And when she was 64 years old, when she come back to her best friend was like, Nayad, you've tried this 3 times. It's not going to happen. And then on the fourth time, she completely succeeded when she was 64. It's the most amazing and inspirational like documentary to watch on Netflix. It gets me in the feels all the time.
wow.
Yeah.
Um, what's after the run around Australia?
What's after the run around Australia? It would definitely be a lot more speaking and retreat running for females.
Yeah.
I love running my retreats called Project RDCA. It's
Yeah.
resilience, discipline, courage, and authenticity.
Which we will also
And
have in the show notes.
yeah, and after that, it's probably just speaking retreats and a little bit of chill time. Like I'm taking 3 months off just to chill and be with my family and just to
Mm.
be grounded. Yeah.
Are you able to sit still?
I say I'm taking 3 months off, but 3 months will be a stretch. Yeah, so no, look, I am craving a lot more stillness though, as in like slow beach walks, just slowness. I do incorporate stillness into my daily routine every morning now, but I'm craving a lot more of it.
So a slow beach walk, are you aware a slow beach walk maybe just 1 to 2 Ks? Can you get it under 30 Ks?
Oh yeah, one thing you should know about runners is I feel like this is any athletes though. When we walk really slow.
Okay.
When we run. But when I walk, my partner's like, "Can you hurry up? You're a runner." And I'm like, "Yeah, this is just nice."
Hey, Brooke, with all this running and all this exercise, what's your food bill like?
Uh that's getting up there. And it is a whole nother challenge to try eat as much as I need to eat to
Mm,
sustain the level of training. So I currently eat anywhere from 2 to 3,000 calories on a normal day. And on a high day, when I'm doing high load runs, anywhere from 50 to 80 Ks, I have to eat roughly 5,000 calories. It is so hard. And this is where, for me, I've learned the importance of all food is food. You've got to
yep.
have your nutrients, you've got to have your micronutrients. But for me to reach 5,000 calories, I also need to have a Big Mac.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just not going to happen.
Brooke, we're going to put all the details in the show notes and we're going to have them up on the screen for the YouTube version of this. Um, I have been really, really inspired over the last few weeks reading about you and looking at your stuff. You are an extraordinary person, and you're someone who I'm sure your family and your friends and your partner are very proud of, but I hope you're also proud of yourself. And
Mm.
thank you so much for joining the Bare Facts because we're going to promote this a lot. You really are extraordinary. Thank you, Brooke McIntosh.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.